Hi there and welcome back. Okay, so to look at some of the background to eye patterns. Well, first of all, it's worth mentioning, I think, that there's not a huge amount of information relating to eye pattern studies. Or rather, there is, but it seems that a lot of people have a lot of different ideas and intentions for discovering what these movements actually mean. And in fact, before Richard Bandler and John Grinder formalised the eye patterns that we now know in NLP and mapped them to internal representations, the earliest work relating to eye patterns as they were to become known is by American psychologist William James in his 1890 book, Principles of Psychology. James observed that there are always physiological micro-movements of the eyes that accompany thoughts which may have meaning. And writing in Principles of Psychology, he said, "In attending to either an idea or a sensation belonging to a particular sense sphere, the movement is the adjustment of the sense organ, felt as it occurs. I cannot think in visual terms or example without feeling a fluctuating play of pressures, convergences, divergences and accommodations in my eyeballs. When I try to remember or reflect the movements in question, I feel a sort of withdrawal from the outer world. As far as I can detect, these feelings are due to an actual rolling outwards and upwards of the eyeballs." So you can see that eye patterns has history, and it took until 1976 when the co-founders of NLP, Richard Bandler and John Grinder, picked up the baton, so to speak, and began to study the relationship between eye movements and internal representations with their growing group of NLP enthusiasts. In fact, it was the interest in eye patterns in the early days of NLP's development that prompted Robert Dilts to carry out what is possibly the most thorough research into eye patterns. In 1977, Dilts set up experiments to attempt to prove the connection between thought or internal representations and the eye movements. He used electrodes to track the relationship, and the results tended to prove the validity of the phenomenon, proving that the eye movements were linked to the internal representations and their senses. Fascinating stuff, don't you think? Now, the link between eye patterns and internal thoughts and representations was an exciting, if not controversial, discovery in NLP, and Bandler and Grinder first described the phenomenon in their 1979 book, Frogs into Princes. Of course, we've moved on a fair bit since the times of William James, and eye patterns, as I've already mentioned, is quite possibly one, if not the most popular topic to newcomers to NLP. So what exactly are they? Well, let's start by saying what they're not and dispel some of the myths surrounding them. For whatever reason, there are a lot of people out there who profess to be able to do lie detection through the use of NLP eye patterns. Well, I'd like to state quite clearly that that's not the case at all, as you'll understand as we go through this section. You simply cannot detect lies by using what I'm about to share with you. Deception training incorporates a lot of physiological micro-expressions and changes in physiology, language, posture, etc., and may well utilise eye patterns as a part of the indication of untruth. And they will be that, just a small part of an overall whole system of lie detection, drawing on the work of Charles Darwin, Paul Ekman and Ray Birdwhistle, amongst others. So, now that we've cleared that up, let's get back to what they really are for us as NLP practitioners. Now, as an NLP practitioner, eye patterns have incredible value in giving us clues to the client's lead and preferred representational systems. So, if you remember, the lead representational system is where we go or what we use to access information. So for example, if we have a visual bias, then to recall stored information, we access pictures and movies in our mind. And the primary representational system is how we communicate these internal representations externally. They're often the same and they don't need to be or have to be. So as an NLP practitioner, you'll want to be sure that you understand the client's lead and preferred representational system if you want to be able to communicate really effectively with them. And eye patterns are one of the best tools at your disposal for doing this. However, first we need to know if an individual is normally or reverse organised. So let's continue on to the next part now and find out how to determine that, and I'll see you in the next part.